the Forbidden Hill. For centuries, history has told us a simple story. Civilization began around 5,000 years ago. Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley. Before that, humans were primitive. Hunters, nomads, survivors. No cities, no science, no monumental architecture. That story is about to collapse. Because deep in the jungles of Indonesia stands a silent hill,
Covered in mist.
ignored by textbooks.
Protected by myth.
Its name is Gunung Padang. And if what lies beneath it is true, human history is not just incomplete. It is wrong. Local villagers never called it a ruin. They called it a place of power. A hill where the earth hums, where instruments fail, where elders warn children not to climb at night. Gunung Padang means mountain of enlightenment. Long before archaeologists arrived, people believed it was built, not by men, but by ancient beings. In a time before memory, legend spoke of a king who tried to build a palace in a single night. When he failed, he abandoned it. Stone upon stone, layer upon layer, a forgotten monument, waiting. In 1914, Dutch colonial researchers officially recorded the site. They described stone terraces, basalt columns, a step structure aligned with the stars. Then they did something strange. They left. For nearly a century, Gunung Padang was labeled just another megalithic site, 5,000 years old at most.
Case closed.
Or so they thought. In the early 2000s, Indonesian geologist Dr. Danny Hilman Nadewajaja looked at Gunung Padang differently. He didn't see a hill. He saw a structure. Symmetry where nature rarely creates it. Layering too precise to be random. Orientation too deliberate to ignore. And beneath the visible stones, something deeper. Something massive. Ground-penetrating radar was deployed. What it revealed changed everything. Not soil, not bedrock, but layered construction.
Stacked.
Engineered. Intentional. A structure descending deep into the earth. Not a mound, a buried pyramid. Then came the tests. Carbon dating samples were taken from organic material trapped deep within the layers. Not from the surface. Not from recent activity. From far below. The results arrived. And they were impossible. 20,000 years old. Then another sample. 25,000 years. Then another. Over 30,000 years old. Older than Egypt. Older than Sumer. Older than Stonehenge. Older than agriculture. Older than what we are told civilization even is. If these dates are correct, then Gunung Padang was being built during the last ice age, a time when humanity was supposedly incapable of organized construction. No cities, no writing, no engineering. Yet here stood a massive megalithic complex, aligned with celestial events, and buried under millennia of Earth.
How?
Mainstream archaeology reacted swiftly. The findings were labeled controversial, then unreliable, then dangerous. Funding was cut. Excavations were halted. Public discussion was discouraged, not because it was disproven, but because it was too disruptive. Because if Gunung Padang is real, then history must be rewritten. Education systems collapse. Chronologies shatter. Entire theories fall apart. And a terrifying question emerges. What else have we buried? Gunung Padang is not alone. Across the world, similar structures exist. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. Yonaguni in Japan. Submerged ruins near India. Pyramidal mounds in Bosnia. All older than expected. All dismissed at first. All challenging the same narrative. What if humanity did not rise once,
But fell?
What if an advanced civilization existed before the last global cataclysm? And what if Gunung Padang is not a beginning, but a survivor? The hill remains mostly unexcavated, over 90% untouched. What lies deeper has never seen sunlight, yet instruments detect chambers,
Voids.
hollow spaces, possibly rooms, possibly tombs. Possibly something else. Why was it buried? Was it intentional? A ritual? A warning? Protection from a coming disaster? Or was it swallowed by flood, mud, time? Ancient myths across cultures speak of a great deluge, a time when knowledge was lost, when survivors rebuilt from fragments. Could Gunung Padang be a relic from that world? A message in stone from a civilization erased? Modern science prefers safe answers, simple timelines, linear progress. Gunung Padang offers none of that. It offers chaos,
Mystery.
and uncomfortable truth. Because if humans could build this 30,000 years ago, then what else could they do? And perhaps the most disturbing question of all, if our ancestors were capable of such knowledge, what caused them to disappear? In the next part, we go deeper into the structure itself, its engineering, its geometry, its impossible precision, and what lies beneath the hill that science is afraid to fully uncover. This is not just a lost city. It is a buried chapter of human history, and it is only beginning to wake up. The buried pyramid theory. Gunung Padang is not what it appears to be. This is not a hill that humans modified. This is a structure that humans buried. That single idea is what terrifies modern archaeology. For decades, the official explanation was simple. Gunung Padang was a natural hill, with stones placed on top by ancient people, a ceremonial site, nothing more. But when scientists looked deeper, the hill stopped behaving like a hill. Ground-penetrating radar does not lie. It sends waves into the earth and reads what comes back. Rock looks one way, soil looks another. Empty space looks unmistakable. When radar surveys were conducted across Gunung Padang, the readings showed something impossible. Regular geometry, sharp angles, flat surfaces, layered construction, descending deep underground at depths of 5 meters, 10 meters, 15 meters. The structure continued. Not bedrock, not chaos,
But design.
seismic tomography confirmed it. Electrical resistivity scans confirmed it. Multiple independent methods showed the same thing. Gunung Padang is solidly artificial, far below the visible terraces. The deeper the scans went, the more disturbing the results became. Large hollow spaces, chambers, possibly rooms, possibly corridors, possibly something sealed for tens of thousands of years. Nature does not create hollow chambers inside hills with symmetrical walls. Humans do. Researchers began comparing the data to known pyramid structures. Egypt, Mesoamerica, China. The proportions matched. A stepped pyramid form, wide base, gradually narrowing layers, a central core. Gunung Padang was not built upward. It was built from the inside out, then hidden. Why hide a pyramid? Because it was never meant
To be seen again.
Some believe Gunung Padang was intentionally buried by its own builders, not by accident, not by disaster.
But by choice.
Across the ancient world, we see the same behavior. Göbekli Tepe was deliberately buried around 8000 BC, not destroyed, preserved, protected, hidden from time.
Why?
Because burying stone is the best way to protect knowledge from catastrophe. Gunung Padang may represent the same mindset, a civilization that knew something was coming, a flood, a climate collapse, a planetary disaster. They did not try to survive it. They tried to outlast it. The core of Gunung Padang is unlike anything else on Earth. It appears to be composed of densely packed basalt blocks, arranged in a honeycomb-like structure. Some stones are oriented vertically, others horizontally, locked together to absorb seismic shock. Earthquake-resistant engineering. 30,000 years ago. Let that sink in. Indonesia, sits on the ring of fire. Earthquakes are constant. Volcanoes are violent. If this structure survived for tens of thousands of years, it was built to survive everything. Even more disturbing, some scans suggest metallic anomalies deep inside the core. Not iron ore deposits, not natural formations, but concentrated signals. Something placed, something deliberate. Researchers asked for permission to drill deeper, to excavate, to confirm the chambers. The answer was no. Excavation was stopped. Officially, to protect the site. Unofficially, because of what might be found. If a sealed chamber exists, deep within Gunung Padang, then its contents could change history forever.
Tools.
Artifacts. Technology.
Proof.
Imagine opening a chamber, sealed for 20,000 years. What would survive? Stone carvings, metal alloys, symbolic inscriptions, possibly even evidence of lost sciences. Mainstream archaeology says there is no reason to expect anything inside. But then why stop excavation? Why restrict access? Why silence researchers? Because the buried pyramid theory is not fringe speculation anymore. It is supported by measurable data, by repeatable scans, by undeniable geometry. Gunung Padang is not alone. Similar buried pyramidal structures have been detected worldwide.
Bosnia.
China, South America, all dismissed, all controversial, all threatening. History prefers ruins that fit expectations. Gunung Padang refuses to cooperate. Another question emerges. Why is Gunung Padang so massive? It is larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza by volume, yet it was built earlier, much earlier. This suggests organization, leadership, a society capable of mobilizing massive labor, not hunter-gatherers, not scattered tribes. A civilization, but not just any civilization. A civilization that understood geology, astronomy, engineering, energy,
And time.
Some researchers believe the pyramids served a non-religious purpose, not a tomb, not a temple, but a stabilizer, a structure designed to interact with Earth itself, to manage seismic energy, to resonate with natural frequencies.
Sound.
Vibration. Stone. These were not primitive people. They were engineers. Using principles we are only rediscovering, Gunung Padang may have been an ancient technological installation, a planetary device, a forgotten machine. If that sounds impossible, remember this. Every advanced civilization eventually forgets how its ancestors did things. We still don't know how the pyramids were built. We still don't know how Roman concrete worked. We still don't know how ancient stone cutting achieved such precision. Loss of knowledge is not hypothetical. It is historical fact. The buried pyramid theory forces us to confront a terrifying possibility. Human civilization is not progressing. It is recovering. In the next part, we explore the most controversial idea yet, that Gunung Padang was built using advanced engineering during the Ice Age. Not magic, not aliens, but forgotten human knowledge. Sacred geometry and energy sites. At first glance, Gunung Padang looks chaotic. Stones scattered, terraces uneven, but chaos disappears. When viewed from above, patterns emerge, ratios repeat, angles align. This is not coincidence. It is geometry. Ancient builders understood something we have largely forgotten. Geometry is not decoration. It is language. The proportions of Gunung Padang reflect natural ratios, the same ratios found in crystals, in plants, in galaxies. Sacred geometry is simply geometry that mirrors nature. The terraces follow repeating measurements, not exact, but intentional, designed to guide movement.
Sound.
Energy. Pathways funnel people toward focal points. Central platforms. Aligned axes. This creates rhythm.
Flow.
Such design affects the human nervous system. Modern architecture studies this. Ancient builders practiced it. Gunung Padang's alignment connects it to solar cycles, seasonal light, shadow movement. This transforms the structure into a calendar, a living clock. Energy sites around the world share similar traits. They are built where Earth's natural forces converge. Fault lines, magnetic anomalies, water flow. These sites were not chosen randomly. They were found. Gunung Padang is one of them. A node, a point of amplification. This explains why later cultures felt it was sacred, even without understanding why. Sacred geometry does not require writing. It is memory encoded in space. If knowledge must survive catastrophe, stone and geometry are more reliable than books. Gunung Padang may encode astronomical knowledge, seasonal cycles, long-term timekeeping, possibly even warnings, encoded in alignment. This is why excavation is dangerous, not because of artifacts, but because interpretation could change everything. The site is not just old, it is intentional. In the final part, we confront the implications, what Gunung Padang means for our understanding of history, and for
What
our
is
future.
Gunung
Padang really? Gunung Padang does not look like a city, at least, not at first glance. From a distance, it appears as nothing more than a forested hill, rising gently from the highlands of West Java.
Trees.
Vines.
Mist.
Nature at work. But as you climb higher, something feels wrong. The slope becomes too regular. The terraces too deliberate. The stones too uniform. This is not erosion. This is design. At the summit, the illusion finally breaks. Stone platforms stretch across the peak. In clear geometric order. Rectangular terraces. Carefully aligned steps. Walls built from long hexagonal basalt columns, laid side by side, like massive stone bricks. Each column weighs hundreds of kilograms. Some weigh more than a ton. And there are thousands of them. No cement, no mortar. Yet the stones interlock. With astonishing precision. They have survived earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, monsoons, thousands of years of jungle growth. Still standing, still aligned, still silent. Mainstream archaeology once claimed these stones were simply scattered naturally, volcanic debris. But nature does not stack stones into terraces. Nature does not align structures to cardinal directions. Nature does not create multi-level platforms with stairways connecting them. Gunung Padang was shaped by intelligence. The visible portion of the site is only the beginning. What you see on the surface is less than 10% of the entire structure. The rest is underground, buried deliberately, or buried by time. Geophysical surveys revealed something extraordinary. Below the terraces lies a massive core structure, layer upon layer, descending deep into the earth. Not random stone, not natural rock, but arranged blocks, forming a stepped pyramid shape. A pyramid, hidden beneath a hill. Unlike Egyptian pyramids, Gunung Padang was not built upward. It was built inward, then covered, either intentionally or as the result of a cataclysm so powerful. It buried an entire monument. The structure is divided into layers, and each layer tells a different story. Layer 1 is what we see today. Stone terraces, megalithic platforms, likely used for ceremonies. This layer dates back around 3 to 4,000 years. Already ancient, already impressive, but it is not the beginning. Layer 2 lies several meters below. Here, the stones are different, more refined, more organized.
Walls.
Chambers, structural supports. Carbon dating places this layer around 8 to 10,000 years old, before known Indonesian civilization, before agriculture was widespread. Then comes layer 3,
Deep underground.
this is where history breaks. Here, the stones are densely packed, engineered, locked together with purpose. This layer dates back 15 to 20,000 years, at the peak of the Ice Age, when glaciers covered continents, when sea levels were hundreds of feet lower, when humans were supposedly living in caves, and beneath even that, there may be layer 4, the deepest core, largely unexplored, but radar suggests it could be over 30,000 years old. A foundation, a base, the heart of Gunung Padang. Why build in layers? Why return again and again? Over tens of thousands of years? One answer is chilling. Because the site was already ancient. To those who rebuilt it, each civilization that came after may not have built Gunung Padang. They may have inherited it, restored it, reused it, revered it, like we revere ancient temples today, without fully understanding how they were made. This pattern appears worldwide. Egyptians built on older foundations. The Inca rebuilt over earlier ruins. Göbekli Tepe was buried intentionally by people who came after its creators. Gunung Padang fits this pattern perfectly. But here's the problem. Gunung Padang is made of basalt. Basalt is incredibly hard. Harder than limestone. Harder than sandstone. It is not easy to cut. Not easy to move. Not easy to shape. Even with modern tools, working basalt is difficult. So, how did Ice Age humans transport massive basalt columns up a steep hill? There are no quarries nearby. The stones were brought from elsewhere. That means logistics, planning, engineering, not primitive survival. Even more disturbing, some stones show signs of heat treatment, exposed to high temperatures. That changed their internal structure.
Why?
To strengthen them? To alter resonance? To store energy? We don't know, but it suggests knowledge far beyond what Stone Age humans are supposed to possess. The layout of the site raises even more questions. The terraces are aligned with astronomical events, solstices, equinoxes. The hill itself appears to be positioned along ley lines or natural energy paths. Local shamans claim the site amplifies earth energy. Modern instruments detect unusual electromagnetic readings. Not dangerous, but unnatural. Gunung Padang does not behave like an ordinary ruin. Compasses malfunction. GPS readings drift. Electronic equipment sometimes fails unexpectedly. Coincidence or design? Some researchers believe Gunung Padang was not just a structure. It was a machine, a resonance chamber, an energy amplifier, a place where sound, stone, and earth interacted. Ancient technology, using principles we barely understand today. Others believe it was a knowledge vault, a sacred mountain, encoding information in geometry and alignment. A library made of stone, built to survive disasters that wipe out paper and memory. Why hide it? Why bury it? Because if the builders knew a catastrophe was coming, the safest way to preserve something is underground, protected from fire, protected from flood, protected from time, volcanic ash, mud flows, Earthquakes. Indonesia is one of the most volatile regions on the planet. If a global disaster occurred, Gunung Padang would disappear from the surface, but not from existence. This raises a terrifying possibility. Gunung Padang may not be unique. It may be one of many buried structures waiting to be rediscovered, hidden under hills, mountains, deserts, mistaken for nature. What if the ancient world was not destroyed completely, but buried? Mainstream archaeology insists there is no evidence of advanced Ice Age civilization. But Gunung Padang is evidence. It just doesn't fit the model. So the model is protected, and the evidence is attacked. Because accepting Gunung Padang means accepting something else. That history is not a straight line. That knowledge can be lost. That humanity may have risen and fallen long before we ever learned to write. And if that happened once,
It can happen again.
in the next part, we examine the carbon dating results that triggered one of the biggest controversies in modern archaeology. Numbers so old, they force scientists to question everything or deny it. The truth they don't want you to know. The most dangerous ideas are not false. They are unfinished. False ideas can be rejected, disproven, discarded. Unfinished ideas are different. They linger. They grow. They threaten certainty. Gunung Padang is not a lie. It is unfinished knowledge. A puzzle still buried. A question still unanswered. A truth still emerging from beneath layers of earth, time, and resistance. What they don't want you to know is not that history is wrong. It's something far more unsettling. History is temporary. Every generation believes it understands the past. Every generation builds confidence on what it thinks is settled. Every generation draws timelines, writes textbooks, and declares conclusions. And every generation is eventually proven wrong. Gunung Padang is proof of this cycle. For more than 100 years, archaeology told a story that felt complete. Civilization began here. At this time, in this order, anything outside the framework was labeled myth, error, or fantasy. Gunung Padang does not explode that framework violently. It erodes it slowly, quietly, relentlessly. It reveals that knowledge does not vanish because it was incorrect. Knowledge vanishes because it is forgotten, because civilizations fall, because memory fades, because survivors prioritize survival over preservation. Libraries burn. Languages die. Symbols lose meaning. Stone remains. That is the difference. Gunung Padang forces us to confront a humbling truth. We are not smarter than those who came before us. We are more connected. That is all. Our advantage is not intelligence. It is communication. We share information instantly. We store data externally. We transmit memory digitally. But remove the network, remove the grid, remove electricity, and what remains? Stone outlasts servers. Earth outlasts empires. If a civilization tens of thousands of years ago could plan, organize, quarry, transport, align, and construct Gunung Padang, then intelligence is not new. Curiosity is not modern. Engineering is not recent. What is recent is arrogance. The fear surrounding Gunung Padang is not about rewriting textbooks. Textbooks are rewritten all the time. The fear is about vulnerability. Because if advanced humans existed before, and they were wiped out, then modern civilization is not immune. That realization strikes deeper than any academic debate. It threatens the illusion of permanence. We like to believe we are different, that we have learned, that technology has liberated us from nature. Gunung Padang says otherwise. It reminds us that Earth does not negotiate.
It shifts.
It erupts. It floods. It cools. It warms. Civilizations adapt or disappear. There are no exceptions. Gunung Padang is not a warning written in words. There are no inscriptions. No prophecies. No declarations carved into stone. Because words decay. It is a warning written in structure. In layers. In alignment. In deliberate burial. The builders did not leave messages. They left evidence. Evidence that Earth changes. Evidence that stability is an illusion. Evidence that long-term survival requires memory, humility, and preparation. The deepest layers of Gunung Padang were not destroyed. They were protected. This detail matters. It suggests awareness. It suggests foresight. It suggests that the builders knew their world was ending. And instead of clinging to it, they preserved what they could. Not their names. Not their faces. Not their power. Their knowledge. Encoded in stone. This raises a haunting possibility. What if Gunung Padang was never meant to be understood by its own builders? What if it was meant for survivors? For future humans? For us? Not as a monument, but as a lesson. A lesson that would only make sense after we believed ourselves invincible. That is why the truth is uncomfortable. Because Gunung Padang does not flatter us. It humbles us. It tells us that collapse is not failure. It is a phase. That progress is not guaranteed. That complexity increases risk. That forgetting is more dangerous than ignorance. We now stand at a crossroads. We can dismiss Gunung Padang. Label it controversial. Delay excavation. Argue over dating. Bury it again, this time beneath bureaucracy and skepticism. Or we can learn. Learning does not mean panic. It does not mean abandoning science. It does not mean rewriting history overnight. It means expanding humility. It means accepting uncertainty. It means preparing for long cycles instead of short profits. Gunung Padang waited tens of thousands of years to be rediscovered. It is not impatient. Stone does not rush. History, however, always catches up. Empires that ignore warning signs fall. Civilizations that believe themselves exceptional repeat the same mistakes. Gunung Padang stands silently, untouched by ideology, politics, or belief systems. It does not argue. It does not persuade. It simply exists. And existence is the strongest evidence of all. The final truth they don't want you to know is not hidden in conspiracy. It is hidden in discomfort. Discomfort with vulnerability. Discomfort with humility. Discomfort with the idea that we are not the first, and may not be the last. What we do with this knowledge determines everything. We can forget again, or we can remember forward. Because survival is not about how advanced we become. It is about how much we choose to remember. Gunung Padang has done its part. Now the question is simple. Will we do ours?
End.
What this changes about human history. Gunung Padang does not simply add a chapter to human history. It tears the book in half. It forces us to ask whether the story we have been telling ourselves is not incomplete, but fundamentally miswritten. For generations, history has been taught as a straight line. A simple path. A beginning. A steady climb. From caves to villages. From villages to cities. From stone to bronze. From bronze to iron. From ignorance to enlightenment. Gunung Padang refuses this comfort. If the dating is even partially correct, then civilization did not begin once. It began again and again, rising like a tide, falling like a shadow, returning in forms we barely recognize. This site does not sit quietly in the past. It stands in judgment of our assumptions. For more than a century, archaeology has relied on a central belief. That complex civilization required agriculture, writing, metallurgy, and population density. That before these, humans could not organize, plan, or build on monumental scales. Gunung Padang challenges this foundation, because here we see deliberate architecture, layered construction, astronomical alignment, geological modification, engineering foresight, and we see it potentially thousands of years before farming as we define it. That changes everything. It means intelligence does not follow our timelines. It means organization may precede agriculture. It means culture can exist without writing. It means memory can survive without books. Most importantly, it means history is not linear. It is cyclical.
Rise.
Mastery. Overreach. Collapse. Silence. Rediscovery. Again and again. This realization forces a difficult question. If civilizations rose before us, why did they fall? Gunung Padang offers no inscriptions, no kings, no dynasties, no heroic names, only stone. And stone tells a different story. It tells us that intelligence does not guarantee survival. That knowledge alone is not enough. That technological skill cannot protect against environmental catastrophe. The deeper layers of Gunung Padang are buried deliberately, not abandoned, not eroded, sealed. This suggests fear, preparation, awareness of an approaching disaster. The builders may have known something was coming. Climate instability, volcanic activity, sea level rise, a planetary shift. Whatever it was powerful enough to erase their world. And this forces us to confront an uncomfortable parallel. We see ourselves as the pinnacle of progress, as the most advanced civilization to ever exist, as the final form of intelligence. Gunung Padang disagrees. It reminds us that we are not the pinnacle. We are the latest. And being the latest offers no immunity. Our cities rise faster than any before. Our technologies evolve at breathtaking speed. But our systems are fragile. Electric grids, supply chains, digital memory. A solar storm could wipe out decades of data. A global climate shift could redraw coastlines. A single geological event could silence entire regions. The past is not warning us gently. It is shouting. Gunung Padang tells us that civilizations can reset, that progress can be erased, that history can forget its own achievements. This humbling realization forces us to rethink what progress truly means. Is progress accumulation? Or is it resilience? Is progress speed? Or is it memory? Stone survives where ego fails. The builders of Gunung Padang did not leave monuments to glorify themselves. They left structures designed to endure. No statues, no propaganda, no declarations of dominance. Just alignment, balance, harmony with geology and sky. This reframes how we see ancient myths. For centuries, stories of lost civilizations were dismissed as fantasy. Atlantis, the Golden Age, the Great Flood. But myths are not lies. They are memories compressed into story. When writing does not exist, memory becomes symbolic. Events become gods. Disasters become moral lessons. History becomes allegory. The Great Flood is no longer just a tale. It becomes geology. Rapid sea level rise at the end of the last ice age is now well documented. Coastal settlements would have vanished. Entire cultures erased. Survivors would carry the memory forward, not as data, but as story. The Golden Age becomes archaeology, a time remembered as harmonious, abundant, stable, not because it was perfect, but because it existed before collapse. Gunung Padang suggests that these myths are echoes,
Distorted.
symbolic, but real. And if that is true, then ancient people were not ignorant storytellers. They were historians without tools. This forces a transformation in education. Timelines must expand. Certainty must soften. Dogma must yield to evidence. History cannot be taught as settled fact. It must be taught as evolving understanding. Students must learn that knowledge changes, that truth is provisional, that humility is a scientific virtue. Gunung Padang exposes the danger of arrogance. For decades, Data that did not fit the model was dismissed, ignored, ridiculed, not because it lacked merit, but because it threatened the narrative. Science does not advance by defending certainty. It advances by questioning it. Gunung Padang teaches patience. It reminds us that stones speak slowly, that excavation takes time, that conclusions must wait for evidence. In an age obsessed with speed, this lesson matters. We live in a civilization that values immediacy, instant answers, rapid growth, short memory. But stone endures where digital records decay. The builders of Gunung Padang may have understood something we have forgotten. That survival is not about dominance. It is about alignment. Alignment with nature. Alignment with cycles. Alignment with limits. And now we reach the truth few want to hear. Gunung Padang does not only challenge the past, it challenges the future. If civilizations existed before us and collapsed, then collapse is not an exception. It is a phase. And if we ignore this, we risk repeating it. We inherit the same planet, the same geological forces, the same climate systems. We differ only in confidence. Gunung Padang stands silently as proof that intelligence is ancient, that failure is ancient, that recovery is ancient. It asks us whether we will learn, not from textbooks, not from ideology, but from stone, because stone remembers what humans forget. And as the final layer of Gunung Padang waits beneath the earth, untouched, unexcavated, and unresolved, one truth remains unavoidable. History is not finished revealing itself, and neither is the story of us. Technology beyond the Stone Age. When we hear the word technology, we imagine metal, machines, circuits, electricity. Ancient people had none of that. But that does not mean they had no technology. Technology is not tools. It is understanding. Gunung Padang reveals a form of technology that does not rely on machines. It relies on principles. Stone technology, sound technology, earth technology. Start with stone. Basalt was not chosen by accident. It conducts vibration efficiently. It stores energy. It responds to frequency. Certain stones resonate. This is physics, not mysticism. If you strike stone in certain arrangements, sound travels. If you chant at specific frequencies, vibration amplifies. Ancient cultures understood this intuitively. They used sound to affect consciousness, to heal, to focus, to connect. Gunung Padang's structure may have been designed to amplify these effects. Terraces create echo. Chambers trap resonance. Stone columns channel vibration. This is acoustic engineering. Then there is geomagnetism. The earth emits energy. Natural currents flow through fault lines and mineral deposits. Some places amplify this energy. Gunung Padang sits in one of these zones. Modern instruments detect unusual electromagnetic readings, not harmful, but measurable. Ancient builders may have chosen the site because of this, not superstition. Observation. The structure itself may have functioned as an amplifier, a stabilizer, a resonator. This is not fantasy. Modern science uses resonance in countless ways. Medicine, engineering, communication. We did not invent these principles. We rediscovered them. Gunung Padang may represent a lost branch of technological development, one that did not lead to factories, but to harmony. This explains why there is no evidence of industrial activity, no pollution, no metal waste. Their technology left no scars, only stone. Later civilizations lost this understanding. They remembered rituals, but forgot reasons. This is why ancient practices often seem symbolic today. They were functional once. Gunung Padang may have been a center for such knowledge, a place where humans learned to interact with Earth rather than dominate it. This does not make them superior. It makes them different. Technology beyond the Stone Age does not mean lasers or machines. It means mastery of natural forces. And that knowledge was fragile. When the flood came, when civilization collapsed, it vanished. Only fragments remain. In stone, in myth, in places like Gunung Padang. In the next part, we examine the idea that the site was designed using sacred geometry, not decoration, but code. The Great Flood Connection. Every ancient culture remembers it, not as a theory, not as speculation, as memory, a time when the world changed suddenly, when waters rose, land vanished, civilizations disappeared. The Great Flood is not one story. It is hundreds of stories,
Telling the same event.
from different shores. In Mesopotamia, it is Utnapishtim. In the Bible, it is Noah. In India, it is Manu. In Mesoamerica, it is the destruction of previous suns. In Indonesia, it is the drowning of the old world. Different names, same catastrophe. Modern science confirms that the end of the last ice age was anything but gentle. Glaciers melted rapidly. Ice dams collapsed. Entire oceans shifted. Sea levels rose over 100 meters. In some regions, the rise was sudden.
Catastrophic.
Walls of water. Any civilization living near coasts would be erased instantly. No ruins. No gradual decay. Just disappearance. Gunung Padang stands inland.
High.
Protected. If an advanced ice age civilization existed, they would have known the signs. Climate instability, seismic activity, unusual celestial events. They would have understood cycles. They would have known this was not the first time. So they prepared, not by saving cities, but by saving knowledge. Stone monuments, buried structures, high ground sanctuaries. Gunung Padang fits this perfectly. Built inward, layered,
Buried.
designed to endure water, earth, and time. This explains why it was not abandoned, why it was sealed, why it was hidden. The builders may have known they would not survive, but they believed someone else would. Flood myths often mention survivors, teachers, wise men, those who rebuild civilization afterward. These survivors do not invent knowledge. They remember fragments. Agriculture appears suddenly. After the Ice Age, architecture reemerges rapidly. Astronomy reappears. Not invented, recovered. Gunung Padang may be one of the anchors that allowed memory to survive. A reference point, a sacred place. Later cultures may not have known its original purpose, but they knew it mattered. That is why it was respected, not destroyed. The Great Flood is not mythology. It is geology remembered as story. And Gunung Padang is geology remembered as stone. In the next part, we examine something even more controversial: the possibility that the builders used technology we no longer recognize. Not machines, but principles. Who built IT and why? This is the question that haunts Gunung Padang.
Not when. Not how.
But who? No names survive. No inscriptions we can read. No statues of kings. No written language carved in stone. Only structure. Only intent. Whoever built Gunung Padang did not seek immortality through identity. They sought immortality through endurance. The builders were not a tribe, not a wandering band. They were organized, hierarchical, coordinated. Gunung Padang required planning over generations. The alignment with the sky could not be done in a lifetime. It required patient observation, passing knowledge forward. This suggests a society that valued continuity, that thought in centuries. The builders understood stone. They chose basalt, not for beauty, but for strength. They shaped it, not for decoration, but for function. This was not art. This was engineering. So who were they? They were humans, not aliens, not gods, not mythical beings. The greatest mistake we make is underestimating our ancestors. Ice Age humans were anatomically identical to us. Same brains, same capacity, same potential. The difference was not intelligence. It was environment. They lived closer to nature, observed patterns, understood cycles, built with the land, instead of against it. They did not write. They remembered. Knowledge was passed orally, through ritual, through architecture, through alignment. Gunung Padang itself may have been a teaching tool, a map of time, a calendar, a memory palace. As for why it was built, the answer may not be religious, or, at least, not in the way we understand religion. Ancient spirituality was not about worship.
It was about harmony.
With earth,
With sky.
with cycles. Gunung Padang may have been a center of learning, a sanctuary, a place to align human life with cosmic rhythms. It may also have served as a refuge, a high-ground structure designed to endure floods, earthquakes, chaos. Some believe it was a warning, a marker, a signal to future humans. Not written in words, written in stone. Later cultures came. They found the structure. They did not understand it fully, but they felt its power. So they honored it, built on it, preserved it. This explains the layers, each culture adding, restoring, reinterpreting. The original builders were forgotten, but their work remained. This is how history truly works. Not clean transitions, but inheritance. Gunung Padang does not tell us
Who built it by name.
It tells us something more important, that humans once thought differently, planned differently, built differently, and that we may be the ones who are primitive. In the next part, we explore the possibility that Gunung Padang is connected to the greatest disaster in human memory, the Great Flood. Atlantis, Bekli Tepe, and Gunung Padang. Atlantis is usually dismissed with a smile, a myth, a story, a fantasy invented by Plato. And for centuries, that dismissal was convenient, because myths are harmless. Evidence is not. Plato described Atlantis as an advanced civilization that existed long before recorded history, a culture of engineers, architects, astronomers, and then it vanished, swallowed by disaster. In a single catastrophic event. For a long time, there was no reason to take Atlantis seriously, until archaeology began finding things that should not exist. Göbekli Tepe changed everything. 12,000 years old, built by people who were not supposed to be builders. No agriculture, no cities. Yet they carved massive stone pillars with precision and symbolism. Then they buried it deliberately. Why bury a masterpiece? Because it was no longer safe or no longer needed. or because those who built it were leaving. Göbekli Tepe forced archaeologists to admit something radical. Monumental architecture did not begin with civilization. Civilization may have begun with monuments. Gunung Padang pushes this idea even further back, not 12,000 years, but possibly 30,000. If Göbekli Tepe represents the final echo of a lost world, Gunung Padang may be one of its earliest survivors. Atlantis, as Plato described it, was not necessarily an island. The Greek word he used can also mean coast or landmass, a civilization near the sea. And where would a global Ice Age civilization most likely exist? Along coastlines, now underwater. When the Ice Age ended, sea levels rose rapidly. In some periods, several meters in a single century, entire regions vanished. If Atlantis existed, its remains are likely submerged,
Destroyed.
scattered.
Gone.
But not everything was lost. High-ground sites survived. Inland sanctuaries. Stone monuments. Gunung Padang fits this perfectly. So does Göbekli Tepe. So do submerged ruins near India. So do underwater structures near Japan. Atlantis may not have been one place. It may have been a world, a global culture, connected by oceans. When oceans were smaller, sharing knowledge, sharing symbols, sharing engineering principles. When disaster struck, most of it disappeared. What remained became legend. Plato did not invent Atlantis. He recorded a memory, passed down through generations,
Distorted by time.
but rooted in truth. Gunung Padang does not prove Atlantis, but it proves something more important, that our past is deeper than we are told. Göbekli Tepe shows us the end of a forgotten era. Gunung Padang shows us how far back it may go, and the similarities are undeniable. Stone architecture, astronomical alignment, burial, reused by later cultures. These sites are not random. They are survivors. Mainstream history prefers to separate myth and archaeology, but ancient people did not. Myths were history, encoded, symbolic, preserved through story. When stone was not enough, Atlantis is not about crystals or advanced machines. It is about loss. Gunung Padang is a monument to that loss, a structure that endured when everything else vanished. In the next part, we ask the most difficult question of all. Who built Gunung Padang? Not in legend, not in speculation, but based on what the evidence allows us to say. Gunung Padang is disturbing on its own. But when placed in global context, it becomes terrifying, because this is not an isolated structure. It is part of a pattern spanning continents, a pattern that suggests humanity once shared a level of knowledge far older than we are taught. Across the world, megalithic structures appear with striking similarities, despite vast distances. Despite supposed isolation. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, 12,000 years old, built before agriculture. Massive stone pillars, astronomical alignment, buried deliberately. Yonaguni in Japan, submerged stone terraces, perfect angles, stairways, a structure now underwater due to rising sea levels. Bosnian pyramids, controversial,
Dismissed.
yet showing geometric precision. And underground tunnels. The Giza Plateau, Great Pyramids aligned to cardinal directions, with near-perfect accuracy. Precision unmatched even today. Easter Island. Moai statues transported over impossible distances. No wheels. No metal tools. South America. Sacsayhuaman. Massive stone blocks, cut and fitted so tightly a blade cannot pass between them. Different cultures, Different eras. Same engineering mindset.
Mainstream archaeology says.
These similarities are coincidence or independent invention. But coincidence has limits. The lost global civilization theory suggests something radical, that a highly advanced civilization existed before the end of the last ice age, that it was widespread, that it shared knowledge globally, not through empire, but through migration,
Trade.
cultural exchange. Sea levels were lower, land bridges existed, travel was possible, where oceans now separate. This civilization did not leave writing, or at least not writing we can read. It encoded knowledge in stone, in geometry, in alignment. When disaster struck, the civilization collapsed, but fragments survived. Inheritors carried the knowledge forward. They built upon ruins they no longer fully understood. This explains why later cultures appear suddenly advanced, why architecture seems to leap forward, why myths speak of teachers from the past. In Egypt, the gods bring knowledge. In Mesopotamia, the Apkallu teach civilization. In Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl arrives from the sea. In Indonesia, ancient kings build impossible structures. Different names, same role. Bearers of lost knowledge. Gunung Padang fits perfectly into this model. Older than expected, layered, reused, sacred. It may not have been the center of the lost civilization, but it was likely a node, a hub, a survivor. Critics call this theory speculative, but speculation begins where evidence ends. Gunung Padang is evidence. Göbekli Tepe is evidence. Submerged ruins are evidence. What we lack is not proof, it is acceptance. The lost global civilization theory does not claim ancient people were more advanced than us. It claims they were advanced in different ways. They understood cycles. They respected nature. They built for permanence, not speed. They did not dominate Earth. They aligned with it. And when Earth changed, they were humbled. Gunung Padang stands as a relic of that humility, a monument not to conquest, but to survival. In the next part, we confront the most famous lost civilization of all, Atlantis, and its unexpected connection to Gunung Padang. History is not only written by victors, it is guarded by institutions. When Gunung Padang moved from curiosity to controversy,
The tone changed.
quietly, deliberately, researchers who once received support began facing resistance. Permits were delayed, funding was questioned, access became restricted, not officially canceled, just slowed. Public statements softened. Language became careful. Findings were no longer presented as conclusions, only as possibilities. Because possibilities can be ignored. Behind closed doors, the pressure was real. Senior academics warned juniors to stay away from the site, not because it was dangerous, but because it was career-ending. Science is not immune to politics. It depends on grants, institutions, approval. Those who challenge consensus often find themselves isolated. Gunung Padang created factions. Those who wanted deeper excavation. Those who wanted it stopped. Not because of evidence, but because of implications. Some Indonesian officials embraced the site as national heritage. Others feared international ridicule. No country wants to be associated with claims labeled fringe. So caution became suppression. Academic journals grew hesitant. Peer reviewers demanded impossible standards. Certainty before exploration. Proof before permission. A paradox designed to stall discovery. This is how controversial ideas die. Not by being disproven, but by being buried under procedure. But Gunung Padang refused to stay buried. Independent researchers continued to publish data. Geologists confirmed artificial structures. Engineers confirmed intentional design. Yet official archaeology remained silent. Silence is powerful. It signals disapproval. Without confrontation, some scientists spoke out. They were labeled sensationalists, accused of nationalism, of seeking fame. The data itself was rarely addressed. This is not new. History remembers many
Who challenged the timeline?
Most were ignored until long after they were gone. What makes Gunung Padang unique is not suppression alone. It is timing. We live in an age of satellites, ground-penetrating radar, high-resolution scanning. The tools to confirm what lies underground are now widely available. Suppression no longer means erasure. It means delay. The academic war over Gunung Padang reveals something deeper. That archaeology is not just
About the past.
it is about authority.
Who decides?
What is real history? Those who discover it, or those who approve it? The site remains protected, not fully excavated, not fully explained, frozen in uncertainty. But uncertainty is dangerous, because curiosity spreads. Independent researchers are asking new questions. Why stop excavation? If there is nothing to hide, why restrict drilling? If the site is natural, why silence debate? If the evidence is weak, these questions linger. They grow louder. Gunung Padang sits quietly on its hill, unmoved by politics, unchanged by denial, waiting. In the next part, we step beyond Indonesia. We compare Gunung Padang to ancient sites worldwide, and a pattern emerges, a pattern that suggests this is not an isolated mystery. Revolutions in history do not begin with acceptance. They begin with denial. When evidence challenges an established timeline, the first reaction is not curiosity, it is defense. Gunung Padang is not rejected because it lacks data. It is rejected because it has too much that does not fit. Modern archaeology is built on a carefully layered framework. Dates support theories. Theories support textbooks. Textbooks support institutions. Change one layer, everything above it collapses. Accepting Gunung Padang as an Ice Age construction would force archaeology to rewrite its foundation, not adjust it, replace it. That is not a small correction. That is an existential threat. Universities teach a linear model. Progress moves forward. Knowledge accumulates. Civilization advances. Gunung Padang suggests knowledge can reset, that civilizations can rise and be erased. This idea undermines certainty. Archaeology also depends on context.
Tools. Settlements.
Written records. Gunung Padang stands alone, or appears to, because everything around it
Has been swallowed by time.
Mainstream scholars ask, where are the cities? Where are the tools? Where are the bones? They expect remains to survive catastrophe. History says otherwise. The Ice Age ended violently. Rising seas erased coastlines. Floods buried valleys. Volcanic activity reshaped regions. Indonesia was hit especially hard. Most evidence would now be underwater or destroyed. But archaeology favors survivorship bias. We only study what remains. We ignore what doesn't. Then there is politics.
Gunung Padang became
a national issue in Indonesia. Government agencies got involved. Funding became ideological. When science intersects with power, truth becomes negotiable. Some researchers were accused of promoting pseudoscience, not because their data was false, but because their conclusions were uncomfortable. Peer review, the guardian of science, can become a gatekeeper. Ideas that threaten consensus struggle to pass, not because they are wrong, but because they are disruptive. History is full of examples. Continental drift was mocked. Meteor impacts were denied. Ancient human presence was underestimated repeatedly, until evidence overwhelmed resistance. Gunung Padang is at that stage. Too early to be accepted. Too real to be ignored. Another reason for rejection is specialization. Modern scholars study narrow fields. They know a lot about very little. Gunung Padang requires cross-disciplinary thinking, geology, archaeology,
Astronomy.
engineering. Few are trained to connect all of it, so it is easier to dismiss it than to rethink everything. There is also fear, not of being wrong, but of being responsible. If archaeology admits that civilization existed tens of thousands of years earlier, then countless conclusions collapse. Careers built on old timelines become questionable. Research grants vanish. Reputations suffer. Science is supposed to be neutral. Humans are not. Gunung Padang also threatens the story we tell ourselves, that we are smarter, more advanced, more enlightened. It suggests our ancestors may have known things we forgot. That is humbling, uncomfortable. So the site is labeled controversial, speculative, and proven. Words that stall progress. Without disproving anything, excavation stops. Debate slows. Silence follows. But silence does not mean resolution. It means delay. The truth is simple. Gunung Padang will not disappear. Technology will improve. New scans will come. More data will emerge. And the timeline will shift. Again, history always changes. Just not willingly. In the next part, we uncover something darker. Claims that research was suppressed. Voices silenced. And questions deliberately left unanswered. Because sometimes, history is not just wrong. It is carbon dating that shook archaeology. Carbon dating is supposed to be safe, reliable, predictable, comforting. It gives history boundaries, keeps timelines clean, keeps the past under control. Until it doesn't. When researchers began sampling Gunung Padang, they didn't expect anything radical. At most, a few thousand years. A megalithic site from early Southeast Asian culture. Interesting, but not dangerous. Then the lab results came back, and nothing made sense anymore. The samples were not taken casually. They were extracted from deep layers, far below the surface terraces. Charcoal fragments, organic soil matter, material sealed inside stone layers that had not been disturbed for millennia. These were not surface contaminants. They were locked in time. The first date arrived. Over 9,000 years old. Already problematic. This place construction. Before known Indonesian civilizations. Before farming was common. But it was still within the realm of academic discomfort. Then came the second result. Over 15,000 years old. Silence followed. Then disbelief. Then panic. A third sample was tested.
Deeper.
More isolated. The number was staggering. 25,000 years. Older than the pyramids. By more than 20,000 years. Older than the wheel. Older than pottery. Older than writing. Older than the idea of civilization itself. The reaction was immediate. This must be contamination. The samples were mixed. The carbon came from natural soil. Excuses appeared faster than explanations. Because if the dates were correct, then Gunung Padang was not an anomaly. It was a revolution. Carbon dating has been used to rewrite history before. Göbekli Tepe shocked the world when it was dated to 12,000 years ago. At first, archaeologists resisted. Then they accepted it because the evidence was undeniable. Gunung Padang goes even further, much further, too far. the deepest layers, suggest dates approaching 30,000 years. During the last glacial maximum, a world locked in ice, sea levels dramatically lower, Indonesia connected to mainland Asia, and humanity supposedly scattered, small, struggling, primitive. Yet someone was building monumental stone architecture. Critics argue carbon dating only measures the age of organic material,
not stone.
That is true, but the organic material was found inside constructed layers, not on top, not washed in later, trapped during construction, which means one thing: the construction happened after that organic material was deposited, not before. In simple terms, you cannot build a wall around something that doesn't exist yet. Some claim the site is natural, and later humans simply arrange stones on top. But radar shows otherwise. The deepest layers are too symmetrical, too structured, too intentional. Nature does not build pyramids and then cover them perfectly with soil. Another argument claims volcanic activity displaced materials, but volcanic flows do not create chambers. They do not create terraces. They do not stack basalt columns in precise orientations. Volcanoes destroy. They do not design. Then came peer-reviewed publication. Indonesian scientists released findings confirming the multi-layer construction and ancient dates. Instead of debate, they faced resistance. Funding was withdrawn. Excavations were halted. Government pressure increased.
Why?
Because these dates did not just challenge archaeology, they challenged human identity. If humans were capable of complex construction 30,000 years ago, then intelligence evolved much earlier. Then advanced knowledge existed long before we thought. Then the primitive caveman
Was a myth.
And if advanced knowledge existed, where did it go? The last ice age
Did not end gently.
Around 12,000 years ago, the Earth experienced rapid climate shifts, meltwater pulses, rising seas, massive floods. Coastlines vanished, settlements drowned, civilizations erased. Most ancient civilizations would have lived near water, rivers,
Coasts.
When sea levels rose over 100 meters, everything disappeared. Gunung Padang survived because it was inland, elevated, protected, and possibly buried intentionally. This aligns with myths worldwide. Stories of a great flood, a lost golden age, survivors rebuilding civilization. Sumer, India,
Mesoamerica.
Indonesia. Different names, same memory. Mainstream archaeology cannot accept this easily because it forces a reevaluation of everything: textbooks, timelines, the very definition of civilization. So the narrative becomes interesting but unproven, speculative, pseudoscience, words used when evidence is inconvenient. But here's the truth. No one has disproven the dates. They have only refused to accept their implications. Carbon dating did not fail. History did. Gunung Padang stands as a silent witness. Its stones older than belief. Its foundation older than memory. Its existence asking one question, over and over again: what if we are not the first advanced humans? In the next part, we dive beneath the hill itself, into the buried pyramid theory, the chambers, the voids, the structure hidden deep underground, and the question scientists fear most: what happens if it is fully excavated? Carbon dating that shook archaeology. Carbon dating is supposed to be safe, reliable, predictable, comforting. It gives history boundaries, keeps timelines clean, keeps the past under control, until it doesn't. When researchers began sampling Gunung Padang, they didn't expect anything radical. At most, a few thousand years. A megalithic site from early Southeast Asian culture. Interesting, but not dangerous. Then the lab results came back, and nothing made sense anymore. The samples were not taken casually. They were extracted from deep layers, far below the surface terraces. Charcoal fragments, organic soil matter, material sealed inside stone layers that had not been disturbed for millennia. These were not surface contaminants. They were locked in time. The first date arrived, over 9,000 years old, already problematic. This placed construction before known Indonesian civilizations, before farming was common, but it was still within the realm of academic discomfort. Then came the second result, over 15,000 years old. Silence followed, then disbelief, then panic. A third sample was tested,
Deeper.
more isolated. The number was staggering, 25,000 years, older than the pyramids, by more than 20,000 years, older than the wheel, older than pottery, older than writing, older than the idea of civilization itself. The reaction was immediate. This must be contamination. The samples were mixed. The carbon came from natural soil. Excuses appeared faster than explanations. Because if the dates were correct, then Gunung Padang was not an anomaly. It was a revolution. Carbon dating has been used to rewrite history before. Göbekli Tepe shocked the world when it was dated to 12,000 years ago. At first, archaeologists resisted. Then they accepted it because the evidence was undeniable. Gunung Padang goes even further, much further, too far. The deepest layers suggest dates approaching 30,000 years. During the last glacial maximum, a world locked in ice. Sea levels dramatically lower. Indonesia connected to mainland Asia. And humanity supposedly scattered. Small, struggling, primitive. Yet someone was building monumental stone architecture. Critics argue carbon dating only measures the age of organic material,
Not stone.
that is true, but the organic material was found inside constructed layers, not on top, not washed in later, trapped during construction, which means one thing: the construction happened after that organic material was deposited, not before. In simple terms, you cannot build a wall around something that doesn't exist yet. Some claim the site is natural, and later humans simply arranged stones on top. But radar shows otherwise. The deepest layers are too symmetrical, too structured, too intentional. Nature does not build pyramids and then cover them perfectly with soil. Another argument claims volcanic activity displaced materials, but volcanic flows do not create chambers. They do not create terraces. They do not stack basalt columns in precise orientations. Volcanoes destroy. They do not design. Then came peer-reviewed publication. Indonesian scientists released findings confirming the multi-layer construction and ancient dates. Instead of debate, they faced resistance. Funding was withdrawn. Excavations were halted. Government pressure increased.
Why?
Because these dates did not just challenge archaeology, they challenged human identity. If humans were capable of complex construction 30,000 years ago, then intelligence evolved much earlier. Then advanced knowledge existed long before we thought. Then the primitive caveman
Was a myth.
And if advanced knowledge existed, where did it go? The last ice age
Did not end gently.
around 12,000 years ago. The Earth experienced rapid climate shifts, meltwater pulses, rising seas, massive floods. Coastlines vanished, settlements drowned, civilizations erased. Most ancient civilizations would have lived near water, rivers,
Coasts.
when sea levels rose. over 100 meters. Everything disappeared. Gunung Padang survived because it was inland, elevated, protected, and possibly buried intentionally. This aligns with myths worldwide. Stories of a great flood, a lost golden age, survivors rebuilding civilization. Sumer, India,
Mesoamerica.
Indonesia. Different names, same memory. Mainstream archaeology cannot accept this easily because it forces a reevaluation of everything. Textbooks, timelines, the very definition of civilization. So the narrative becomes interesting but unproven, speculative, pseudoscience, words used when evidence is inconvenient. But here's the truth. No one has disproven the dates. They have only refused to accept their implications. Carbon dating did not fail. History did. Gunung Padang stands as a silent witness. Its stones older than belief. Its foundation older than memory. Its existence asking one question, over and over again. What if we are not the first advanced humans? In the next part, we dive beneath the hill itself, into the buried pyramid theory, the chambers, the voids, the structure hidden deep underground, and the question scientists fear most. What happens if it is fully excavated?